thanks you guys for taking the time here for a few minutes out of your busy days. Thomas, I was really curious to know more about your study abroad program to Chile.
Sure.
I want to hear about it, man. Why did you choose to go to Chile? Can you share a little bit about that program?
Yeah. Just a little background. My mom is Mexican, but didn't grow up speaking Spanish. She doesn't know Spanish. And so it was important to me growing up, or at least around junior high school, to try to learn Spanish. And so you met Fernando at one time, Drew, back when we were in Arizona for the out-of-state recruitment. We played Jenga. I think it was a long time ago now.
I remember.
Yeah. He lived around the block from me, and he's from Mexico. So he was helping me with my Spanish. We played baseball as well back in high school. And so I knew like I really wanted to study and learn Spanish. So as I went to college, my older sister, who was a few years ahead of me and went to UCLA, I asked her what was one of the things she regretted not having done in college. And she was very active. She did a lot of things. She was actually the Bruin Bear for one of her years and did like the baton stuff for the band. And so she didn't have an opportunity to study abroad, and that's what she said she wished she had done. And as I was looking into studying abroad, I had to, take a certain amount of Spanish classes to be eligible. And everyone was going to Spain. Everyone was going to Spain. Like Spain is Barcelona, Madrid, Sevilla, I think was another program, incredibly popular. And I figured I'll go to Spain at some point. And Mexico, I'll go to Mexico too at some point. So I chose Chile because it was just off the beaten path. It was somewhere where I didn't picture myself going ever. Somewhere where it felt very unknown, but it also felt like I would have my own experience that wasn't sort of what people have as your study abroad experience, going to Spain or Europe, where people most commonly think of studying abroad too. So that year in 2003, we had 80 students from the UC program. I was at UC Santa Barbara, so the UC Education Abroad program. Everyone that wants to go to Chile from any of the UCs, we all applied together, and 80 of us were selected. So I went down there for the year in 2003. And it was great. It was very, when you talk about going into a new country, and for the first time, not just my real first time leaving the country, but also my first time going somewhere where there's a completely different language as the predominant language, you're just taken aback at how much you don't know, how much everyone else knows about the US, but we may not know as much about other countries, which was tough. 2003 was also, I think we were in war in Iraq. Schwarzenegger was just elected, and at the time it was very sort of like surreal that our governor was Arnold Schwarzenegger. A lot of people, us Californians, about it. But it was eye-opening. You got to hear a different type of Spanish. You got to be surrounded by it. You got to make a lot of new friends and connections. And, I did as much as I could during that year. The seasons were reversed, which was fun to experience. I arrived in January, February, right as I was turning 21. And it was summer. And so that was pretty cool. Went down to Torres-Gill and started looking, just like trying to explore and experience Chile, and then Argentina, and Peru and Bolivia. I didn't get a chance to go to Brazil or Uruguay, but I did eventually later. Like that whole trip just changed my whole path, studying abroad, changed what I wanted to do coming back, changed what I do now. So without that year, I don't know what I would be doing, but maybe I would have chosen somewhere else. So.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I know we did our study abroad panel in November. And do you mind if I ask you a couple of the questions that I asked the students about their study abroad programs?
No, go ahead.
All right. Let's see. What were some of the highlights of the program that you went on?
Highlights.
Well, first, how long were you there in Chile?
I was there for a year.
Okay.
Leaving, I asked everyone that I knew how long they had studied abroad for, and everyone that said a semester said it was too short, and everyone that went for the year was like, that was the perfect amount of time. So I went for the full year, January to December.
Did you ever come back home during that 1 year period, or
No.
you were there the whole time?
If I had money, which I didn't have a lot of, I went to different countries instead, somewhere where I hadn't been.
Right, right. What were some of the highlights or something unique about Chile?
Oh, man. What's kind of funny is Chile, like one of the things about Chile is it's almost like California. Except that, just imagine California went all the way up to Alaska and then all the way down into Mexico, and you squished it. Like the climate where we were in Santiago was very similar to just being in the valley. Then you have Valparaiso and Viña del Mar, which is just like the bay. So it had a lot of like, it felt very natural to be there in terms of climate, but they have deserts and they have ocean and they have glaciers or snow, and they have mountains, the Sierras. I mean, the Andes are basically an extension of the Sierra Nevadas. You know, that's a city. From what I remember, it's like somehow, or used to be connected, you know, way back in the day, before the continents split up. So it had a very nice, familiar sense to it, but it was also so incredibly different. And, you know, just being in a space where you can, as a history major, you can kind of connect to what you've been studying about. You can kind of see colonial structures, you can see the indigenous footprints. And also, you know, Pinochet was a dictator for up until I think the early 90s. And so that was still fresh on the mind. September 11th for Chileans is not when the World Trade Center buildings collapsed. It is now, but it was also when Pinochet took over. And so it had, or I think it was a downfall, one of the two, I'm confusing them now. But like it was very active. And, but for me, one of the bigger parts is just like seeing in person all this stuff. We got to tour the torture prisons, or the prisons where they tortured Chileans back during this regime. You know, so the UC program did a great job setting up tours to vineyards as well. So we got to have some nice Chilean wine. And really they made it so easy to adapt. The first month we were all together in intensive Spanish, programs. So we can kind of like figure out where we are at that moment and try to get ready for the university level classes, because they were all at the university, all in Spanish. And they did a lot of trips. One assignment was to meet up with a few people and go somewhere and report back on it. And so we went up to Punta Arena, and just had a blast. Probably got into too much trouble, but that's another story off the podcast. You know, made some great connections. And then of course, one of my favorite trips was going to Peru and going to Machu Picchu. Such an incredible place.
Nice. How far away is that from Chile? Peru, are they right next to each other?
They border each other, but I feel like if I can't remember exactly how long the plane ride was, but I feel like it's a few hours away.
Okay.
And you really do need to fly to Cusco, because even it takes a long time from Lima to Cusco by bus. I feel like that's a day-long trip. And so you really do need to fly to Cusco.
Yeah.
Cusco is one of my favorite places.
Oh man, we were supposed to do that trip, or not me, but we were supposed to send students to Peru this last summer and maybe this upcoming summer, which isn't looking very good right now, but man, looks like an amazing place. I remember Chile. The one thing I always remember about Chile was it was the easiest one to spot on the map for South America.
Really?
Well, because it was just the really long, skinny one, like you mentioned, you know, on the West Coast, the most identifiable one.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. Yeah, I always saw Brazil because it's like the biggest one there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Daisy's like, yeah,
Yeah,
definitely Brazil. What was that, Brazil? Or I called you Brazil. What was that, Daisy?
Oh, yes. Yeah, Brazil is really big. But I've been to Chile too, and I really want to know if Thomas, did you have some kind of culture shock over there? How did you feel about the culture? Something special that really shocked you is really different of the United States?
You know, Santiago has like one of the best economies, especially at that time. There was a few things that did shock me. One of them was how modernized it was. Honestly, because I feel like the way that we present countries outside of the U.S. is that, especially South American countries and Central American, is that, you know, you're living off the land. It's not as industrialized. And you know, you can look even at your movies that you're watching, especially your more mainstream movies. Listen to the music you hear in the background. See the kind of scenes. It's usually cattle or carts or food carts. But Chile, I mean, it's a big city. Santiago is a big city. You can go to the rural areas and see more small towns, but even those are still set up, you know, in the colonial way. So it's not too different than what you would normally experience. So that was one piece where I was like, wait, I thought this was supposed to be a little bit more rustic or maybe like a throwback, but it wasn't. But one of the biggest pieces that really I struggled with was the Spanish. I mean, the Spanish there is so different than what you read in the books, and it's so difficult to adapt to. Some people say that Chileans sing when they talk, but the words are different. The way they, like how they speak is different. And so when I went to Peru and Bolivia, I actually understood them because it felt very much closer to the book Spanish and the classroom Spanish. But Chileans, like avocado is agocate, like here, but there it's palta. Strawberry is fresa here, and it's frutilla down there. So like you can adapt to certain vocabulary because it's like everywhere, but it was tough because you're not even sure what they're saying. And then you hear this word and you're like, what is that? But it was great. I feel like I had some culture shock mainly with those pieces there and just like adapting to, you know, a new university experience. But I loved a lot of it. Taking the buses there was so much fun. And I know they've changed it, but basically the buses were commission based. So you picked up as many people as you could. You kept the doors open, people would just be hanging out if it was that crowded. They'd see a bunch of school children and they just pass them because they didn't pay anything because it's like waived or subsidized by the city. So they were just like, I'm not going to pick them up. I'm going to go towards the business people. But so many people used their metro system, which was incredibly clean, and their bus system because, you know, it's expensive to have cars. So not as many people are able to do it.
Oh, great. And did you have a chance to go to Vinha del Mar in Valparaíso?
Yeah, a few times. It was an easy bus ride. Yeah, and actually the last week I was in Chile, a couple of friends of mine, we rented a house in Reñaca. And for that last week leading up to Christmas, because it's the summer. And so we ended up having an apartment that we rented out for a week. And a lot of our friends who were already leaving or about to leave, they would come by for like one last hurrah. We'd go out, go to the beach, have fun, and then they'd take off. And then another group of friends would come by. But yeah, Viña Valparaíso was great. And one of my friends who I met on the program from Davis, he met his wife during this program, and they live in Valparaíso now. They got a bed and breakfast. They did that a few years ago.
Nice.
No, you didn't meet your wife on this trip, though, did you?
No. No.
And one more question, Thomas, because one of the big concerns about study abroad is how to make friends. How did you feel about that? Did you make a lot of friends from Chile, or mostly or like Americans then went there with you? How was that?
Yeah, that is a tough part. You know, like one of the challenges is if you have a tough time speaking the language, it's hard to connect with people. Just to put that out there. So that was more for me. But on the program, there are others that were native Spanish speakers who were able to really have better conversations, and others that had a better language ability than I did that were able to make friends. And for me, I made a number of Chilean friends, but what sort of happens is when you're part of a program where you're immersed together for a month, you start to really connect with those people. And so a lot of my friends were from the program, they were from the States. And we ended up living together. I lived with a couple of buddies, and we ended up making our own friends through classes or just through pure, just like being out and about and exploring, and we'd all sort of connect. But a lot of our friends were either other study abroad program people. I think Tufts University had a big presence there. There were some Europeans, like Germans and French, that lived together with Spaniards. And so there was like a little mix of those studying abroad that connected, and then whoever their Chilean friends were sort of brought into that mix. And that's how a lot of that worked out. This is almost 20 years ago now, which sounds hard to believe.
Yeah.
I know, man. We're getting old.
Daisy, since you're an international student, do you find something, is that true for you, or has that been one of your experiences, or how's it been different for you?
No, actually my question was because of that, because I feel like here in the United States, Americans are really, really welcome. I have like people here that I can call like best friends, you know. I feel like Americans are really, really welcome people. I remember in the beginning here, I could like barely say hi. And anyway, I could do like my driver license and so many stuff, because so many like people helping me all the time. So I feel like Americans are really, really nice people to like be friends, you know, and are really like loyal people, you know. After they became friends, they just became friends forever, you know. So it's really, really cool, you know. So I feel like it's really a great country to came to make friends and feel like involved in the culture and everything, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, and honestly, Chileans were very friendly as well. It was fairly easy to connect, but yeah, it depended on the person too and what they were looking for. And so, yeah, I had more American and international exchange student friends than Chilean friends, and I think maybe it's more to my Spanish level than anything else. But yeah.
Nice.
And Daisy, oh, go ahead.
Did you live there in mostly like apartment with friends, or did you live like in host families too, like Chile people?
Yeah, so I was with a host family to start. Everyone gets a host family to start, and then the arrangement is that's for a month. And if you wanted to stay, you had to negotiate that with your host family, or if they wanted you to stay, you had to negotiate that in the rent with them. And I had fully planned on staying. In Chile, by the way, their lunches are the big meal. So like all the food, like the biggest meal of the day was lunch, and dinner was sort of leftovers from that. And I loved like the cooking from the mom, who was, oh gosh, I think she was Swedish. Like she was from Sweden, and the husband is Chilean. But she, you know, fully speaking Spanish. And I could be getting my country wrong. I hope I'm not. But she made some really good food, and not just like Chilean food, which is generally not as good as other countries' foods, but has some good dishes as well. And so I had fully planned on staying, but I was convinced by a couple of friends to move into an apartment, because it was like 18th floor of this apartment downtown, and just like incredible views of the Andes, and it was cheaper, and I couldn't pass that up. So I felt like that took away from my Spanish, but it added to just sort of having a little bit more personal freedoms, because the host family had, you know, house rules, which I would have been okay with, but it would have been a different experience. I would have had to go everywhere to do anything. I wouldn't have been able to have people over and you know, do anything other than that. So
that sounds like a really great experience, Thomas. I feel like it was amazing time. And how about this month you were in the host family? Did you feel like a part of family, or you feel like you were just like a student over there?
Totally felt like part of the family. They had 3 boys. All of them were, well, 2 of them were older. One of them had a family. Or one of them had a daughter. The other one wasn't married. And then the youngest one was in high school or junior high. And they were just like the nicest people you could have met. The dad was really funny. He made a lot of dad jokes, Chilean dad jokes. They've had international students come through their doors for years before that. But yeah, they're really incredibly welcoming and the best host family you could really ask for. And it was for those reasons that I was, considering and wanted to stay with them. They made it so easy. The room was a closet. Like it literally fit a twin size bed and a dresser in there that was tiny, but I would have made it work because they were just so welcoming and just made things so easy. And they were in a nice location. I don't know if you are familiar with a lot of Chile, but Irarrázaval, like they're by the Plaza de Ñuñoa. And so it's a nice little spot too.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to share, Thomas, or just about, it doesn't necessarily have to be about Chilean study abroad, but anything related to international education that you're looking forward to this year?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a real tough year in general for programs leaving the country or going to any country when you think about COVID. And here in the U.S., as you look at social unrest and political unrest and all that's happening. But this year, I think, is going to change and revert back to sort of what we had been more accustomed to. So I'm looking forward to just a better sense of stability. Ideally more openness to international students. I know people are jonesing to get out of their areas. I know I am. I can't wait to be able to visit family down in other parts of California or even go on a vacation outside of the state. And I can't imagine if you're a student who's graduated high school, maybe last year, and had planned on going to study abroad or to live abroad or do your whole university abroad, and you've just been waiting or trying to do something else. I can't imagine like that pent up like feeling to just go and start what you've been wanting to start. And I know we have students already doing that from home, but I'm excited to see just everyone's excitement to come back and to return to whatever our new normal looks like, knowing it's going to be different. And I'm glad we've been able to do a lot of different things in our office with technology that we can now incorporate. That's going to make it easier for us to do online appointments or online workshops. Of course, in person is we're missing that. And I know we'll get to that, but I know it's been tough for everybody to participate in what we're doing. So having these other options is going to be great. So I'm just looking forward to the new year and just can't wait to see our students in person. It's been a long time since we've been able to all connect together.
Yeah. I was just thinking, man, we are living in some historic times right now. I don't think the world's going to ever be the same after this. I mean, you're talking about being in Chile and buses being filled to the brim, and stacked with people. I don't know if we'll really ever see that again. I mean, I don't know. Maybe one day people will go back to the way things were before, but I think it's going to be a while for us to feel like safe being in close proximity with each other,
Yeah.
I mean, the world is always changing, right? We'll never do what we've done before. And that's a good thing. The motto, it's not broke, don't fix it. That can work for so long, but Drew, we had typewriters in this office, 4 or 5 years ago. Those weren't broken. But we could definitely do things better. And Chile changed that rule. Like they basically removed that commission-based model because of all the issues it caused. Plus those buses polluted like a ton. And so I think they like changed up a lot of what they've done to make it easier on people. I think they unionized or something. I should look it up before I start speaking about it. But I'm excited to see what happens. I'm also though not worried, but just knowing how many people are going to be on the roads now because they are going to have this fear of public transportation. We haven't even talked about it, but but the students voted out the AC Transit contract. So our students are going to have to, pay for their own public transportation before they have that massive discount. We'll see how that impacts anything, but there's probably going to be a lot more people on the roads, which should make public transportation a lot more calmer to take if it's not as crowded. So,
yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that because I used to take BART into the office.
Me too.
Oh, you did too.
Yeah.
How do you feel about taking public transportation now?
For me, I kind of feel like it's safe because I feel like if we follow the rules, we keep like our masks on, we really wash our hands. I think it's possible. So I feel like comfortable. I would totally take if I need to, if I have to, you know. I don't have any problem because I need to go to supermarket, to pharmacy and other stuff. So I feel like a public transportation is kind of the same, you know. So I feel like a few times is totally okay.
Yeah. I don't feel like any particular place I've been to is different than any other place. You can look at quality of your transportation, but in terms of safety, there's almost risk everywhere. You know, Colombia, Chile, Argentina, the U.S. You know, Bay Area, BART compared to LA and their subway system.
Yeah.
I feel like for the most part, people like take that one or two stories that they hear and they run with it. And that can be the same abroad as well. Like I was warned, don't go to Colombia. Colombia was great. You know, I want to go to more parts of Colombia. There's parts where you stay away from, but that's same as true here. In San Francisco, you know, they get criticized quite a bit about sort of a tourist experience and what they have to interact with just walking around and what they experience and how unsanitary it can be at times in the city, which, you know, there's a lot of valid reasons for that. I'm not criticizing those, but when you're talking about safety, I feel like our transportation system is very safe. Just be aware of what's around you.
Yeah, I believe. Yeah. And Thomas, what is the big lesson did you take about this challenge time in 2021? Like a positive one.
Oh, well, for me, I keep going back to like our reality in our life and what we plan to do. This is all a construct, you know. This is all like your 9-to-5 job, or, you know, your daily grind is what we call it, where you go to work, you work, you go home, you 2 kids, you know, cook and clean, you do all that stuff, do bedtime, and then you do it again. Your daily grind. It has been what it is, and it can be changed if we want it to. And so I feel like for me, I keep reflecting back on, like, we can create sort of the experience of our own lives and the lives of our community members. And it's not something that is fixed. You don't just have to have the 8-to-5 job. You can possibly do some of this remotely. You can do more within this. And so I feel like it's just like reframe my perspective on how and what I'm looking for in life. You know, I've spent a lot more time cooking, which is great. I love to cook. And a lot more time exercising now, which I haven't had time for in the past with 2 little ones. So I feel like it's sort of opened my eyes up about like what is important, because you're surrounded by, I am at least surrounded by my family, which is incredibly important. So the most important thing.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. What about you two?
I feel like everything is possible to do from home. I feel like before people used to, we need to go to the office, we need to socialize, we need to do like everything in person. And I feel like people learn it's definitely possible to do things from home, you know. And I feel like even when everything gets a little better, many companies gonna still work from home, you know, because it's totally possible, you know. I feel like we can like do like a Zoom party is what can be really fun too. So I feel like even if this feels like sometimes it's bad, I feel like we improve a lot our skills in 2020, you know. So I feel like it's kind of new world. We adapt, we survive. And I feel like everything is great the way it is now, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would be interested in seeing some sort of hybrid model, you know, maybe where you're going in a couple days a week for meetings, because I still think there is an important aspect of that face-to-face contact and meetings. But you're right. I think there is a lot we can do virtually. And I was just on a meeting before we hopped on here with the French Embassy cultural office. They're based in New York and LA. But we were just talking about, you know, putting on some cultural workshops or building cultural awareness and building exchange programs and different things that we can do. But these are meetings that I don't know if they would have been happening if we were meeting in person. We might have had to wait for a conference to meet in person. Like that's kind of how we always used to think, right? Oh, I'll meet you when you're here in San Francisco, right? When are you coming to the Bay Area? And then we can meet about these things.
But if you're in New York, you're like, let me make in-person meetings in the Bay Area so I can get on a plane and go. You know, I'm curious to see what this does to our traditional conferences. If like NAFSA or a regional one might have a digital and in-person conference where you have digital access to certain sessions because you can't maybe fly there, but it's cheaper to do the session.
Yep.
I'm really curious to see how this is going to change everything. And Drew, and maybe Daisy, you're aware, we were doing some of these Zoom meetings for our staff before COVID-19. We had a handful of Zoom meetings. And we kind of got prepared for technology. So I felt comfortable moving digitally. And I hope there is some components when we get back in person as well. But we're lucky. We're sort of adept at this, and hopefully more people have been able to pick up on these skills and see how to use them. They're not necessarily better in some ways, but they're not necessarily worse. They do really enhance communication, or they can have that ability to do that. So, you know, like that meeting there.
Mm-hmm. And we were talking about even study abroad programs. If you're doing them virtually, you can really go from one place to the next in the same day and learn about different cultures and experiences. Now, obviously it doesn't replace going there physically,
Study abroad.
Study in broad. That's right.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, studying abroad, I feel like you have to be there. Like you have to go. You have to. I think the living, and it just changes the entire experience, because it's something as subtle as the climate can like impact what you're doing and why you're doing it. You know, going to Costa Rica and being on the Caribbean side, and just like it's just so different. And then connecting with people who are having this experience with you. I mean, that's really sort of, for me, the magic of study abroad, and what really stuck with me, and why I really wanted to work with international students who are having those experiences too, although probably differently. And just seeing that excitement and just helping them through the withdrawal and watching them acclimate and excel. So, yeah.
We're going to have to continue to support it and advocate for it. And hopefully when it's safe to travel, we'll be launching some new and exciting programs. So I'm excited about the direction of our colleges and where we're heading in terms of studying abroad and helping our students get out there and see the world.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, guys, for taking some time today out of your, again, very busy schedule. I know Daisy, first week of school. Congratulations on getting through week 1 of the semester. And Mr. Torres-Gill, have a great rest of the day and a weekend ahead.
Yeah, you too. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. Looking forward to watching it later on online.
That's right. Check us out on YouTube, Peralta International Conversations on YouTube. All right, guys. You take care. Have a great day.
Take care.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.